Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grunt.
What is going on, guys? It is Josh here with Buckeye Bowhunter, and I am joined by John Shiner, as always, and we have the elusive Bryce Rohrbaugh here. Finally, we found him. I swear it's him. If you're watching the YouTube video right now, he doesn't have a camera, but he's got audio. So, we drug him out of them hills down in Southern Ohio to join us today. How you doing, Bryce? How you been?
Good. I'm halfway back. I got audio. That's it. But I've been good.
Been busy lately or something? Working too much? What's up?
Work got absolutely crazy in February. My little winter vacation when slow time has ended. So it's been kind of haywire. Moved into a new place. So that was nothing but more work too, outside of actual work. So
any outdoorsy hunting, fishing stuff? What have you been doing lately?
Some of the time I could get away. Did do some rabbit hunting there December, January. Just started doing some catfishing again. Rabbit season was good though.
Catfishing already? Doesn't that seem early?
You can catch me around really.
Yeah.
But,
so when I talked to you like a week ago, you said you went rabbit hunting, and I was like, oh, I totally forgot about rabbit hunting.
Yeah.
Like that's something I would have loved to go on earlier in February, because that went till February 28th in Ohio, didn't it?
Yep. And some of the guys I know down in Southern Ohio have like 3 dogs, and this was my first year going with them a few weekends, and we did pretty good, but from what I've heard from them and other groups of people I know, they all kind of said it was a low year on rabbits. They weren't killing double-digit numbers a day like they were the year before. It was all, if you killed 6 that day, like that was a good day. So apparently rabbits were kind of down.
Rabbits are like one of those species that just fluctuates. Their population size fluctuates so much because of how rapid they produce and how many predators they have. So, one year they might be down, next year there might be too many because they all live. We had such an easy winter, but that's good. Well, that's cool, man.
Yeah, I've been getting out as much as I can.
Yeah, sounds like you've been out more than me lately, honestly.
I keep seeing videos of people scouting, and it's like that's what I really need to be doing. You get some scouting in rabbit hunting, but not enough.
Not enough, right? Me and John. So today we figured we'd talk about, deer season's over. Shed season for me hasn't really started yet. I don't know how much time I'm really going to get in the woods looking for sheds this year, but in the last few days I've had deer on camera losing antlers, so I'm probably going to get out and hit the woods this weekend looking for some of them antlers, but I don't know honestly how much more time I'm going to get, because like you, Bryce, I've been busy out of my mind with work. But I figured, everybody wants to talk turkey, so I figured we talk a little bit about turkey hunting. Me and John went up to the land. What was that, last weekend, John?
Yeah, last weekend. Out in Ashtabbeautiful County. I don't know if everybody listened to the last episode, but we had a couple of things we wanted to accomplish, and I think we worked on it. A little bit of shed hunting on your end, a little bit of TSI on my end. I got the trees I wanted cut. I got the oaks released from the canopy that I wanted on my property. But more specifically, we did a little shooting, little turkey gun shooting, in anticipation for literally what's around the corner,
Dude, it's going to be here. It's going to be here so fast, man.
Coming quick.
So we shot our shotguns, patterned them a little bit. Bryce, have you shot your gun yet this year? I know I was talking to you about sights and all kinds of stuff.
I have not. I want to get a sight for that 20 gauge. honestly don't even know if I'll use it again this year. Might go back to the trusty 12 gauge after I whiffed on that Tom about 25 yards away with that 20 gauge. But either way, the sight will be good. My girlfriend wants to try and go out. I might, if I even get time, I'll try and take her out, and then she has a red dot at least. But
I got you.
we'll see. I will be shooting here soon. I have room behind my new place now, so
Sweet.
I
Yeah,
can shoot at my own leeway.
that 12 gauge you got for me, I like that gun, but that like barrel is just so long.
It's a 20. It's a 20.
Or yeah, 20. I'm sorry. Yeah, that
20.
barrel though, it's like a 3-foot long barrel. It's like a waterfowl gun.
Which
Yeah,
it's not much different.
I hated toting that around the woods, man.
It's lighter than my 12 gauge. My 12 gauge I
I'm
have
sure.
big barrel like that, but I don't know, something about comfortability. I got, like I said it before on one of these episodes, but I have a kryptonite with new weapons, new guns. I miss the first thing I shoot at with every new gun I shoot. So
That's why you gotta practice with it, man. That's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, and we don't have to talk too long about it, but patterning and why that's important. So me and John shot our guns. Just for the listeners out there, because I get a ton of questions about the gun that I use on YouTube and on TikTok and everything. I'm shooting a 410 Mossberg semi-automatic, like turkey edition or whatever it is, shotgun. And it's a 410, super specific loads. I'm shooting, I think, the Foxtrot 380 strokers, and they did really well for me last year. I patterned the gun last year, shot it on paper, made sure I liked the pattern, made sure, I'm shooting one of those red dots too, made sure that red dot was centered in the pattern. And, so patterning it this year was pretty easy. I bought the same loads. They worked so well last year. I shot a bird in Kentucky at 45 yards with a 410 and dropped him. So, no reason to switch. So I, took John, 2 shots, and it was still on, hadn't moved, and I was good.
Yeah, you had a lot of confidence in yours. For everybody, I'm shooting the 12 gauge Remington 870 Super Mag with the red dot and an Indian Creek choke. What choke do you have on yours, Josh?
Mine's an Indian Creek. You keep talking. I'll get the I don't know what the constriction is on it.
The
but
specs are okay.
Yeah.
I believe mine's a 665. But yeah, the typical ammo. What I shot last year and what I got my bird with last year was Winchester. I know this was a topic of discussion that we really wanted to hit. Was patterning a gun. I had the gun range out at the property, and Josh jumped up there and he was slamming the paper, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm done, man. I'm gonna walk away." I go, "Oh, good for Josh." And now I'm up, and I threw one of those long beards in, and crushed it at 20. Felt really good. All right, let's back out. Shot another one, and again, it's the same load. And it was just a hair off. And for whatever reason, maybe because I was getting low on the ammo from last year, I switched over to 4-shot, still 3.5 inch, Winchester Longbeard XR, but the number 4 BBs. And took a shot. I think we were at like 45 or 50 yards. And it was way off. And then, I had so much to do that day that my mind kind of started spiraling. Oh no, what happened? Grab another shell. All right, let's redo it. Oh gosh, that one's way off too. All right, let's move the red dot. We're going to restart. And I ended up dipping into, I'm sure everybody has it, remainder shells. I had 3-inch Federals, and I'm like, all right, I'll just use this close to recenter everything, start over, and just shoot those to kind of get the close range stuff. And then I'll jump back into what I wanted to hunt with, which is the 3.5-inch long, number 5 shot Winchesters, and patterning with varied shells. I think everyone should know that it doesn't go very well. So I'm kind of awry right now, and the more we shot, the more it got more haywire, which is wild because last year it took us 3 shots, and I was just, the confidence was great, kind of like you had, Josh, that you shoot a couple and you're dead on, and you feel great. But then I started tinkering and switching shells, and
well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about why before we go on, just for you guys who are wondering what I'm shooting, the Indian Creek number 43 .385 constriction. That's why I'm shooting the 385 strokers from Foxtrot, because they're actually made for a 385 constriction choke, and I mean they pattern like a dream. They're freaking awesome. So I don't know what I paid for this, like $50. They're a little expensive for a 410 choke, but I think it's totally worth it. But anyways, when it comes to patterning a gun, you said that, John, and that's so true. You were like, I didn't want to dip in to my good shells too much. I hear that all the time. I think everybody feels that because these shotgun shells and these turkey loads, these specialized loads nowadays, they're so freaking expensive. I mean, I'm embarrassed to tell anybody how much I spent on those Foxtrot loads. They were more than $100 for 10 rounds or 10 loads. So it's like, you don't want to just waste them. They're $12 a pop. That's an entire lunch. I could get Chipotle for 1 round essentially. So it's like, you don't want to, be wasting those, but at the same time, it's really important that, and like you said, it was just a busy day. We weren't really thinking too much. And, you always think, well, you never know sort of mentality sometimes if you're trying to get away with stuff or cut corners. And like, you have to pattern with the specific shells that you're shooting. Because I think you had 2 different Longbeards too, right? You had a 5 shot and you had a 4 shot, and even those were shooting differently. And then you start getting frustrated, and then, like you said, your mind starts spiraling. So it might cost a little bit of money, but if you do like the way I patterned my gun, and you buy a gun, probably plan on using it for a couple years, bite the bullet the first year you get that gun, do some research, pick a load that you want to shoot or a couple different loads, and spend a bunch of money. You just spent $600, $800 on a shotgun. Spend $200, $300 on shells, or whatever you can afford, and test out a couple different shells. Pick the one you like the most, pattern your gun to that, and then every year you use that gun from then on out. As long as you're not messing with your, sight or whatever. I only shot 1 shell and I'm good to go. You know what I mean? So you're only really wasting that money or putting that money up front for shells to pattern your shotgun. And then every year you're just kind of putting 1 or 2 through it just to double check that nothing's gone awry while it was sitting in your closet. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it. It's a lot of money, but those 10 stroker shells that I bought, I'm not going to kill 10 turkeys this year. Hopefully I don't miss any. That box might last me the next 2.5 years, until, before I run out. So, I think it's just super important that bite the bullet, make sure you're shooting the same shells that you plan on hunting with, because they're all going to fly so different, and I think that's exactly what me and John ran into with his gun. It was just, and it was crazy how different they were. The difference between the 4 and the 5 was like the center of your pattern was 10 inches, 12 inches,
Yeah, huge lesson learned.
Yeah.
Huge lesson learned.
'Cause, for those who don't know too much about it, like, there's a different amount of pellets in each one of those, and they're all different weights, and wind is going to affect them differently, and the constriction of your choke tube is going to affect them differently, and how much pattern or how much powder is in there is going to affect that differently because they're different weights and all this stuff. So all of that stuff comes into play. And I know it stinks, and I know it can be expensive, but, I feel like we owe it to the turkeys to make sure our guns are as patterned as possible.
I got a question
Go for it, Bryce.
based off this. So what happens if you're trying to pattern an iron sight gun, and like John's situation, you're dead at 20, and say you're using the same ammo through, and you start to back up, you get to that 40-yard range, and it's not patterning good. It's all over the place. Do you try another shell? Do you try a different shot? Do you just try? What do you do then? I mean,
Well,
what's your first step?
this is what I think everybody gets confused about too, is like, what are you actually looking for when you pattern a shotgun? What does that mean to pattern a shotgun? And you are sighting in your shotgun essentially, especially like newer loads, right? They're real tight out to 30 plus yards. So you do need to like sight it in, right? Make sure that dot is where it's at. But really what you're looking for is the most like evenly distributed pattern that you can find that your gun will give you, based on a different load.
Gotcha.
So that when you're shooting out that far, you're shooting 40 yards, you're shooting 50 yards, you're increasing the chance, or you're decreasing the chances that a bird's going to, find a hole in your pattern and not get hit, or not be fatally wounded. If you're out at 50 yards, it depends on what you mean, like all over the place. Like you're just not getting a good pattern. There's gaps and it's random, or is the pattern nice, but it's just like shooting not where you're aiming it. You know what I mean? What do you?
Yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of in general.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So like if you're shooting an iron sight gun and you have, it's dead on at 20 yards and you're nailing it, right? And the pattern's beautiful. And then you drop back to 40 and all of a sudden the pattern just kind of falls apart and it's not a really nice pattern and there's gaps and it's just not consistent.
Yeah.
You could spend more money, try to get more specialized loads, try to see if you can improve it based on that. You could try different choke tubes, and there's a science to it, man. Like I get on. Go ahead.
I think, like you said before, if you get a brand new gun, or you inherit one, or however you acquire it, I think doing a little bit of desktop research on your phone, on your computer, is going to save you some steps.
Absolutely.
What gun
Absolutely.
you have, what choke you have. If you don't have a choke, do a little bit of research on what choke you want to get, but then marry your choke to your ammo.
Yeah.
So I guess to answer your question, Bryce, like if you're just shooting it out of, a smooth bore, whatever choke, modified choke, you may be erratic at 40 with a 2 3/4 4, Remington Nitro 4. So you may increase your accuracy, your better patterning, if maybe you screw on a turkey choke onto that and marry it with a particular ammo, or like Josh said, get 3 boxes of different things that you've read online that shoot well out of that particular gun, that particular choke, and shoot all 3, and then whoever is best at 40, that's who you're going to be rolling with. Don't be married to any particular company, brand.
No,
It's
absolutely.
What gun what ammo your gun wants to shoot.
And I promise you, John, and that's an amazing point that you said, like do research before you go and buy and try and stuff. Everybody on earth has tried every combination. Like there's somebody on earth, that has tried every combination there is. Like I didn't come up with this choke with the loads I'm shooting with my shotgun. I literally found a guy on, it was like oldgobbler.com or Reddit or something, that was like, here's my 30 yard, here's my 40 yard, here's my 50 yard pattern, here's the shells I use, here's the gun I use, and here's the choke I use. And I was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to buy those. And it shot just like that guy said, you know what I mean? So that saves you a ton of time and energy and wasted money for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, Bryce, to answer your original question, if the gun is shooting great at 20 and it's not shooting good at 40, either like we said, you got to put a little more money into it, a little more thought into your setup, whether that's shells, choke, or whatever, or maybe the sight's not really going to do anything for you, but
Right.
that, or maybe it's just not a 40-yard gun. You know, if you don't got the money to do that, you know, now you're shooting turkeys 35 and under. You know,
I'm curious to see how that play out. If when I do this with the old Mossberg 500, I might go back to this year because I've killed every bird I've killed with that gun. But when I first got into turkey hunting, I was younger and I didn't know half of nothing about patterning. Right, I bought the 3-inch shell, the biggest I could, and bought the Remington Nitros. Somebody told me word of mouth, oh yeah, those will work, and I mean it worked, but when it came to practicing or patterning, I never touched it with that gun. So I'm kind of curious to see how I can do that with just the basic full choke and see how it really does at a far range.
yeah. I mean, the cheapest thing you can do is buy a couple. And like, dude, you know, when you get to a point where you're like really into gear and really messing around with how your gun shoots and all this stuff, like, and you want to spend money on that sort of stuff, that's why, you know, me and John are talking about this stuff. Like, if you don't want to spend the money on that, or you don't have to spend the money on that, like, I've killed so many turkeys with a single shot, you know, modified fixed barrel in my life. You know what I mean? All that means is you do still need to pattern it, but you need to pattern it to figure out where your limits are. You know, that old single shot I had, I couldn't shoot a bird past 20 yards. Like, that was it. I killed a lot of birds inside 20 yards with that gun, but I knew my limits. You know what I mean? I'm not out there just winging birds at 35 yards with a gun that can't do it. So knowing your limits is kind of the point of patterning.
Right.
And not every gun, not every combination. You know, everybody thinks they should be able to shoot to 50 yards today with whatever, and there's a ton of stuff that can do it, but there's still a ton of guns out there that can't do it, you know? There's a lot of the older stuff, so that's kind of the point of it. But I don't know, did we kind of touch everything when it comes to patterning?
I got a little story if you want me to throw it in there.
Let's hear it, man.
My friend that I went rifle hunting with in Missouri last year, turkey season, he went out there by himself, and this big Tom came 40, 50 yards. I think he just had a older Remington 12 gauge full choke, 3-inch shell, shot it, dropped the turkey. He got up, started walking towards that turkey, popped right back up and ran off after it was laying on the ground for 10 seconds. So, good example of definitely knowing limits.
Oh, that would break my heart.
He was.
I know.
He said,
I know. I learned my lesson. Yeah, Bryce, to kind of go off your story, I know I had a personal experience. I was using another Remington 870, just an Express. I think it was a Mag Express or Express Mag. But I had the standard field barrel with just a BB on the end. And I was shooting Federal number 5s, 3-inch. And I had a bearded hen come in on me in a field on a setup. I had, decoys out. And, not, I don't really take my rangefinder with me turkey hunting. But I probably should have. But I ended up having her come in, and I took a shot at her at what walked off at like 53 yards, but it felt like she was in my lap. And I took the shot at her, and I saw the BBs like hit her feathers, and it didn't even, like, she like brushed it off like it was nothing, and ended up taking off. But I was like, what in the world? Like, I aimed high, above her head, and let it fly. And it was wild that, the BBs hit her, but it didn't phase her. But again, I walked it off. And I'm like, oh boy, 53 yards with the particular gun and setup I had.
Too far. Huh?
Too far.
That's crazy.
Too far,
That's
yeah.
crazy. 50 yards looks a lot shorter with a turkey in front of you, for sure.
It does, yeah. I thought she was in my lap. And
Right?
Well, I was with you for that, right?
yeah, yep.
Yeah, I thought so. I couldn't remember. I was like, did he just tell me that story several times, or I was there? But I remember, yeah, that bird flying away, and we were like, what in the world is happening right now? We looked for that bird for like an hour after that, in case I was like, maybe she just dropped and died somewhere out there in that swamp. But
I saw her 2 weeks later.
Did you
I saw her
really?
2 weeks later on a nest, yeah. Yeah, so she made it.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, I shot a bird. And sometimes you just miss, right? And sometimes you just make a bad shot.
Definitely.
Me last year, man.
There was a bird. It would have been the most epic hunt ever, guys. I would have been a freaking hero if I killed this bird. It was like opening morning, Southern Ohio. I drive down there. It was like one of the first times I was like filming my own turkey hunt, and I get up in there and immediately hear a bird, I don't know, 80 yards from where I was like standing and listening. I'm like, oh shoot, I could just sit down, which is essentially what I did. Started calling, this bird comes right into my lap, what seemed like my lap. That woods, like a turkey out in a field, that woods is kind of open. It's a little deceptive. And I shot at this turkey at what I assumed was like 35 yards, but I think it ended up being almost, 60 something. And just way off, man, because it was like downhill and the woods was really open. And he was just a big bird, man. He just looked so much closer than he was. But when I stepped it off, I think I stepped it off at like 56 or something like that. But that was kind of a bummer. That was like 5 or 6 years ago. I missed that bird. But
learn.
Yeah, knowing your limits, and it sounds like we all need to be a little better at judging distances in the turkey woods too. So maybe a rangefinder will be a good thing to bring.
There you go.
Well, experience speaks for itself. Being out there and getting cracks at birds and doing your best. When I had that opportunity at that bearded hen, that was 8-9 years ago. So, lesson learned, and I won't make that mistake again. I think I'll give it a little more time and hope she comes in a little closer.
Yeah.
Decoys definitely help a lot. I use that to my advantage, like religiously now. However, 25, step it off, that's where I place it. Then you kind of have a general idea.
Putting
of how far you're shooting.
Decoy. Oh, I didn't hear what you said. I'm like, what'd you say? Your decoy.
Sorry,
Okay.
putting your decoy about 25 yards, step it off back to where you want to sit, and then you have a general idea of how far.
That's a
you're
good
kinda
idea.
shooting.
It's important too to remember just a little thing when you're setting decoys. Try to always make sure that they're facing you, which forces that turkey to come around and get between you and the decoys to get in front of them to make because if you got a big Tom and if you got like a Tom or a Jake and he's facing away from you and that bird's coming in, he's going to think that bird sees him. He might hold up and wait for him to come in. Like he sees me, why isn't he coming over here to fight if he wants to fight or whatever? You got a hen decoy.
See,
but if you turn him around, that bird's going to think that they can't see me. I got to get in front of them. Why aren't they looking at me? So
that might have altered my hunt last year when I missed that Tom. I had it facing like to the left of me.
Okay.
So not facing directly away, but like, to the left of me. Tom comes from the right and he kept wanting to go around me behind the thicket in the tree line I was against.
That could
and I was struggling to get him to come back in front of me, but
yeah, if you got them decoys facing a certain way and he wants to go that way to get in front of him, that might be. So always, my thing is 20, 25 yards, like you said. If I'm hunting on the ground if I'm in a blind, I might put him at like 15 yards. But if I'm just running and gunning, I'll put him at about 20 yards and face them at me, and that'll put that bird at 15 yards in my lap. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But just
the other
go
thing,
ahead.
you said 15 yards, right? I honestly think 15 yards is way harder than 25
I agree.
You mean shooting
like
them at 15 yards?
yeah
Like
yeah
hitting them
you
or
got,
getting them into you?
both.
Yeah.
I think hitting them, when we were shooting, you know 10 yards, he's right there, he's right on you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think your margin for error is tiny. That pattern coming out of that gun, I mean, at 10 yards isn't but what, 8 inches? So if
Yeah,
you're
it's
not
little.
dead on his head, you're going to whiff, total whiff. Not, I still think your setup is right. And you want him working his way into 15. I'd much rather have 15 versus the decoys facing away, and you're looking at that 50 yarder. I don't want that.
No.
But maybe you
Well,
can
how
catch
far
him.
that bird you killed last year in the Wayne? How far was he?
He was, I think
20?
24 yards.
24.
I mean, yeah, rocked his world. He came right in.
Yeah. Well, when you're there's,
I felt like that was a perfect shot.
Yeah.
Perfect distance for a shot.
It's different when we're in a situation like that where we didn't have a decoy, right? Those birds are coming in and they're looking for us. You're going to take that first shot available to you, and usually that's going to be 25 to 35 yards or something like that when you see that bird. But I feel like if you got decoys out there, if you guys have ever killed a bird on a decoy and they commit to the decoy, you don't exist. Like, they just come in and they are 100% focused on that decoy, and you have all day, all the time in the world to take a shot at them. Now, I don't hunt with decoys too much, except when I'm around home on some of the private farms I hunt. When I'm setting up 20 to 15 yards trying to get that close shot. And a lot of that, too, is for filming purposes, to get a really cool video or whatever. But, it's whatever you're confident in your gun. If you got a gun and you feel really good at 35 yards, put your decoys at 35 yards, man. But you also always, so it's goofy too, because like, even if you face the decoys towards you, sometimes that will make the tom be like, oh, I need to go get in front of them. Sometimes it won't. And if your decoys are at 30 yards, he might hold up at 70. But if your decoys are at 15, he might hold up at 45, and now you still have a shot. So, like, that's where that Goldilocks zone comes in, is like, you try to do everything you can to get that bird to come in, but just because of the way they're facing it might not always work. So I've seen a lot more turkeys hold up or turn around and run the other way at 40, 45 yards when they see my decoys then come in. So that might give you an option, or might give you an opportunity to still kill that bird, as opposed to if your decoys are at like 35 yards. Especially like in a field. If you're hunting in a blind out in the middle of a field, put your decoys at 15 yards, because a lot of times that bird will just come in and just strut back and forth at 70 yards, like waiting for your decoys to do something. But it's just trying to stack as much in your favor as possible. But like I said, I don't hunt too much with decoys, especially down running gunning on public land. It's a good way to get shot.
I know somebody that got shot in the leg that way.
Yeah, I know someone got shot in the face that way.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from patterning, I just want to say this. For most people who are probably shooting 12 gauges out there, and you're wondering what kind of shotgun shell to get, I like 5-shot more than anything. More than 4, more than 6. Most brands are probably going to do well for you. I really do like the Longbeard XRs, like you're shooting, John. I think those are fantastic, like middle of the road priced shell. But get the 5s. I like the 5s. So
I compared them last year with that 20 gauge, and I ended up, I think, liking the 6s better. If I remember right. They patterned a little better with that 20 gauge, but
I'll
I'll try them again.
Too.
Yeah, they'll have more BBs and stuff, and I mean they'll knock down a bird. They all will. I just like the 5s for, like you were talking about, when you get out to them really far shots, those 50-plus yarders.
Mm-hmm.
You got a little more kinetic energy, a little more momentum in each one of those BBs. So hopefully he doesn't bounce off of his feathers and actually kills him. You know what I mean? Where that's the only thing I worry about with my 410 is like I'm shooting 9.5 and 10 shot. Like they're tiny, tiny, tiny. And I know they're tungsten and they're heavy TSS, but still something that small. When you get out to that 40 yards, it's like how much damage is that really got? You know, how much inertia does that really have left? Anyways, killed a turkey last year, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you got one. Sure.
Still got to shoot straight, no matter what you're doing.
So what are your plans this spring, Bryce? What are you doing? You coming down to Kentucky with me and John, or what, dude?
I actually just got word from that. I was telling you, my buddy I'm going to West Virginia with.
Yeah.
I think those weekends might not match up, so there's a good chance.
Really?
I'll swing that with you guys.
Sweet.
Yeah. I got to go back.
He's teasing us. Don't tease us now.
I'm not teasing you. I'm not.
That'd be pretty legit, man.
I'm
we got
hoping
our
swing that down. That'll be sweet.
we got our Airbnb already, so it's
I gotta pay
literally. Oh, you'll have to pay up, bro. Yeah, if you're gonna come. if you only, we're staying there 4 nights. So if you're only gonna come and stay like 2 nights or something, we'll prorate it for you. So
Okay. I like it.
yeah, but it's. I mean, we could talk about our trip a little bit if you want, John. The spot, Bryce, that we picked is pretty centrally located between. Well, I can say the Daniel Boone because it's so big, and 2 other wildlife areas.
Yeah.
So we have, it's in a pretty sweet spot, and we're going to have a lot of opportunities. Just, I think time's going to be our biggest factor, is going to be our biggest limiting factor is how much time we got. But luckily in Kentucky, you can hunt all day, John, so.
That's awesome.
Start right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we kind of learned, we learned quite a bit last year, having multiple people, whether it's just me and Josh or hopefully Bryce, you can make it happen, making it 3, utilizing 3 bodies. I think we learned last year that, teaming up isn't really the best way to go. Splitting up is the way to go. Covering more ground. I think a big thing that we learned last year was not marrying ourselves to a particular area. Even though the history on certain mountain ridges was good in the past, but splitting up, covering ground, and finding the sign. I know that is I feel like this podcast motto is finding the sign and hunting it. But that was huge last year. I think we kind of fell into our own laps of this spot was good 2 years ago, last year, whatever. That's where we're going to go. And that's why we struggled big time. It was when we kind of branched out and got outside of our comfort zone. And, when we ran into the birds, it was obvious. Not just because we could hear them, but each one of those fingers on that, ridge system showed us that this is the right spot. Scratchings, feathers, droppings.
Yep.
It told the story, and it worked out for us. And I think if we implement that down in Kentucky, there's nothing but success awaiting us.
Hopefully, yeah, man. Yeah, that's our plan, Bryce, is to kind of split up. You see a lot of these hunting shows and stuff and how successful they are. And, without naming names, it's a lot of it has to do with how many people they got in the woods spreading out and finding birds, especially when it comes to turkey hunting, So if you got 2 bodies or you got 3 bodies, if you end up coming down, Bryce, let's use them. Let's all split up in the evenings.
Yep.
try and hear as much fun as it would be to hang out together every night and whatever, I'm sure there'll be some of that, but, split up in the mornings, split up in the evenings. And when we get on birds, then, we can all, get together and kind of tag team them if we want to. But using the number of ears we have, 3 people, 6 ears, like spread them out and let's find some birds. You know what I mean? And you're right, John. I already feel it in the back of my mind. I'm like, I see if you weren't going with me, this is what I would do. I would do the exact same thing I did last year because I was successful last year. I would show up and I'd go to I'd cross that creek the first morning. I'd go to the bottom of that first mountain expecting to kill a bird because that's where they were last year. I need to be, and you got to push us and I'll push us too. If it isn't happening, if we get there and it's just like not happening the first morning, like, we'll have a decision to make. Do you want to stay and try and put a bird to bed here? If it sucks, let's just go. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go try somewhere I've never been. You know what I mean? Because our plan, Bryce, is to kind of start out where I hunted last year just because, it's familiar to me.
A little bit of familiarity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, for new state, yeah.
And there was a ton of birds there last year, so I don't see why it would be bad, but you never know, man. They did, in deer season, they burned a lot. So I don't know if that'll make it worse or better. I would assume better, but who knows? So just being prepared to pivot and change and have plan A, plan B, plan C. That's why every time, we talk, John, I'm like, let's look at Onyx. Let's have spots in mind, like specific spots to go to so that, like, if this sucks, like, well, this is where we're going next. This is where we're going next, which I think saves you so much time. And that's the thing about when you go on an out-of-state trip, I think having those different plan A, plan B, plan C prepared and ready to go so that you're not wasting a ton of time on a 4-day trip. Just, because if you're like me at all, you get really indecisive and kind of paralyzed almost when you're overwhelmed or things aren't going your way and you don't know what decision to make next. I can waste a ton of time, worrying about what move to make, where to go next, blah, blah, blah. So if you already have that laid out, you don't have to think about it. You just go. If this one sucks, let's on plan C, plan D. You know what I mean? I think it'll definitely help us out in the long run.
Yeah, not to be, like you said, paralyzed.
Exactly.
And oh my gosh, this is we're failing. And not to sit on your butt and pray that a bird's going to run by.
Yep.
It ain't going to happen. Having those plans ready and being proactive, and it's okay to scrap a plan and go on to the next one. And even jump into something new that, we haven't gotten into. And I think that was a big success last year because the bird I got last year, that was a ridge system that any of us, we had never been to.
Yep.
We ran out of options and we're like, where are we going to go next? And somebody threw their finger down, let's check this ridge system. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. And bam, they were there.
I got knock on wood. I got a feeling we're not going to have trouble finding birds. It's just we're going to have trouble killing them. I think last year I literally went to the same spot every morning because I heard so many birds every morning. But, every time I say that kind of shit, it ends up making me a liar when I bring you guys. Like, dude, I thought you said this was good. I'm like, it was you last year, I swear. So to ask questions, last year, what was the successful tactic that you used that maybe we can replicate that worked for you last year? You talking to me in Kentucky?
Yeah, because I've never been to Kentucky. I've driven through it 4 times in my life, never gotten out. I just drive through it. Walk those ridges. I don't know. Did you see sign? Did you?
Yes, there was a lot of signs. So I'll start with this. I think the biggest limiting factor for me last year was how in shape I was. I've been working on that a lot. I know, John, you started working on that a lot. I've been running and stuff on my breaks and during work hours and on my lunch break, trying to put in a couple miles or whatever just to get in a little better shape because last year, man, it took me, I didn't kill a bird till day 5, I think. And day 4 and 5 were rough. It was like the first day and the first 2 days, I was covering so much ground. But by day 3, day 4, day 5, I wasn't going very far. I was praying for a bird to just, if I heard a bird, if I heard a bird a mile down the ridge in the morning, I would head that way and just hang out there for the afternoon, hoping to get him to strike, or something like that. Because I was so whooped, man. I just got so whooped. So I think getting into a little better shape is going to be definitely a good thing for this year. I think it's going to help us because, just on that wildlife area I was hunting, to get back to where I killed my bird and where I would listen every morning and where a lot of those birds were congregated, it was a 2-mile walk. So every morning in the dark, you're walking 2 miles. And then you're probably walking out at some point during the day to, drive to another part of the place and maybe walking back in there in the afternoon to roost and then walking back out in the dark. So you're putting in 7+ miles a day on average, I think I was doing. So getting into shape is going to be a big one. What else could we use? I don't know what tactics made me successful. I think the big thing was these are public land birds, and they are pressured, and I feel like I could tell pretty quickly. Within, the first morning, there were 5 trucks in the parking lot. There was a lot of dudes running around the woods, and I think we have to be prepared for that. It's not going to be we got the place to ourselves, John. So we have to be prepared for that, but I don't think it's going to mean we're not going to be successful. It just kind of is going to change how persistent we have to be because I don't think everybody's as persistent as I am or as you are. I think, when I was there Monday, nobody. So there was nobody in the woods, had the place to myself. The birds were kind of acting different. They weren't gobbling as much throughout the day because opening day, dude, I heard 500 gobbles just constantly till 2 o'clock in the afternoon and gunshots too. But then by day 3, Monday, it was you'd hear them off the roost, but then they were quiet. And then every once in a while you get one going and you get on him and he'd disappear. But the one thing I noticed, and I heard this in a podcast earlier this week, which kind of made a light bulb go off. I think it was at Zach Farrenball from the Hunting Public talking about how he thinks you can tell if birds are really pressured when they're gobbling, but they don't ever seem like they're strutting. They're just constantly on the move, which makes a ton of sense in my mind, right? If you're a really comfortable bird, you're not pressured very much, you're going to sit and strut in one spot and gobble your head off. Whereas if you're a very pressured bird, you've been shot at, you're still going to gobble, right, to try to get hens to come to you or whatever, but you're going to be moving a lot more, right? You're not going to stay in those spots that you traditionally would strut in because a hunter come walking in on you or something like that. And that's what I kind of noticed last year. All the birds, I would hear them gobble. It'd be gobble, gobble, gobble. And then 2 minutes later, it was halfway down the ridge, gobble, gobble, gobble. And then 2 minutes later, it was halfway, another 500 yards down the ridge, gobble, gobble, gobble. And then you'd hear them gobble, gobble, gobble. And you're God, that thing just went by me like a freaking moving car. So I know they were pressured. Go ahead.
Would you say that, so, everything that you see and hear and relaying on experience, so you have 1 season experience, that they were on the move after the first 2 days. Would you say that they were traveling on the tops or on
Yes.
one bench?
They
Or
would
were
be
they
on.
or when
Go
they
ahead.
change, are they dropping down as they're going, or were they moving up, or were they paralleling, the mountain, just moving across the ridge?
They were
I don't.
always, most of the birds, I shouldn't say always, they were on the tops of the ridges, or they would be on like a bench or two down from the top. And like the hills down there, they got benches. So like it goes down pretty steep and then it flattens out probably 70 yards, and then it drops down steep again and then flattens out. So they use those benches as strutting areas, strutting zones, places to pitch off when they roost and stuff like that. So they were either on the tops of the ridges, which I think, the very tops of the ridges often had some sort of walking path, logging road, some sort of clear cut or something on top. So they were using those areas to move pretty quick and strut and whatnot. And then the benches that were up kind of high. I never really heard birds down low. Never really heard birds gobbling in the bottoms or anything like that.
What? So with that, what was the typical weather?
Oh, it was nice. It was.
So not very windy.
I think I probably had a couple days that were kind of windy, but it was
So
always
I wonder
50 in the mornings, 70 in the afternoons. Yeah.
So I wonder, if we get out there this year, and we have a day where, we get a thunderstorm or something, and it's 35-mile-an-hour winds, how that's going to play. Will those birds come down off the tops and get down low?
I mean, that's a good thing to think about. Yeah, you get a good, downpour come through. Like that's a quarter of our hunting trip, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or more than that, depending on how long it is. So, yeah, just because it's raining isn't going to keep me out of the woods unless it's like blowing 50 and lightning and thunder. I've definitely killed birds in the rain, but yeah, I don't know. They say usually when it's raining, they're going to like try to go into more open areas. I've seen that. If it's windy, they're probably going to try to get down low, kind of like any other animal out of the wind or whatever. So yeah, we'll definitely have to keep that in mind. But I think I'm trying to think of like the big takeaway I had from last year. And I kind of talked about how much I walked, but there was a lot of times where I would like walk through an area, call a few times, get half a mile around this bowl, right? And a bird would gobble right where I was an hour ago.
Okay.
So a lot of times I think they are kind of coming in. And this happened to me, I think I can think of it as two specific times, like later in the week, where the birds are a little more pressured, right? So they're not being as vocal. They're coming in quiet. And when they get to where they heard that hen, they're like, where are you? So they let out a gobble or two. And that's all I would hear. I'd hear one or two gobbles, and then I couldn't get them to gobble anymore. And then I would just keep moving. You know what I mean? And
what time of day?
This would be in the middle of the day, between
day.
10 and 2 o'clock. Yeah. And that's what I think was happening was I was putting on so many miles running and gunning, trying to find a bird that was hot and wanted to play, the fun game, where I think a lot of these birds wanted to be like sneaky and quiet and come in and by the time they got there, I was, like I said, a half a mile down the ridge or around a bowl, or I'd drop down and come up the other side and, well, shit, he's gobbling. I was just there, So maybe, still covering ground, but being more deliberate about slowing it down at certain times and setting up and, let's just sit here for a half hour, see what happens. You know what I mean? I think that might.
I had a scenario like that happen on the biggest bird I ever killed down in southern Ohio. Kind of heard him off the roost. This was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 days into the season. and you could just tell they're starting to get quiet. You're hearing less off the roost. You're hearing less gobbles each day. We heard him off the roost, knew it was close, called, kind of answered a couple times, and then he was off. I mean, he didn't gobble again. I think it was like a whole hour or more that went by, and here he came right from that way. We heard him, and he didn't gobble till he seen that hen decoy.
Yeah.
And he was right on top of you. So, yeah, it's happened a couple times like that. Sometimes sitting and waiting, it does happen, but
I've killed birds
sneaky.
like that. Yeah, I've killed birds like that before where you know they're being quiet. You know there are birds around. There's no way there's not any birds here. Like if I sit and call quietly a little bit, something's going to come in. I've killed birds like that. I just always feel like I'm going for that. I'm like, I want that bird that's just hammering, and comes in and gives you that like crazy feeling as opposed to like deer hunting
Right.
for them. But
Right.
if you wanna kill a bird, you got to be able to adapt, and I don't think I did that very well last year. But yeah, and then John, the other thing I think is going to be really important, and like I told you, I was really tired, so I was getting up a little late every day last year, and I'd get into the woods a little late. It'd be getting light out as I'm like closing my tailgate, and I'm like, dude, I got 2 miles to walk back there. So I'd always be like 20 minutes, half hour behind where I wanted to be. And I think it's going to be much more important for us to roost birds and find out exactly where they are and get in on them and set up within 80 yards of their roost before it's even light out. Like I didn't do that at all last year. Like I would always like I said, as embarrassing as it sounds, I'd be late. I'd get in there. The birds already sound like they're off the trees, either they're off the roost or they're gobbling their heads off. It's too light to get in too tight. And I'd like miss out on that, prime opportunity to shoot one off the roost. I think that's how you're going to beat other hunters. That's why I think getting down there Friday evening to roost a bird is going to be very important. One thing to think about, though, we're not allowed to use turkey calls before turkey season actually opens. You're allowed to use a locator call, but you can't go out in the woods and use a turkey call before opening day. So
Good to know.
yeah,
Bring
but
the hooter.
yeah, oh yeah, bring the hooter. But I think getting there Friday evening, try to get there if it gets dark at 7:30. Try to get there at 6:30. It's only 3 hours or something like that. And get out in the woods and actually roost a bird and get in, get on him, as opposed to like, I don't know. I think I had this mentality last year where it's like, oh, there are birds gobbling over there, good enough. And I'd like head back to the truck and then I'd just like get into that area in the morning, as opposed to like, he's in that tree at the tip of this ridge. I'm going to get in here an hour before daylight and set up 70 yards from his tree. You know what I mean? Which I think being more deliberate about that will be definitely helpful this year. So,
Yeah, very good.
but
We'll make all that happen.
yeah, I'm excited, man.
Have you broken out your Tupperware gear yet?
Yeah, actually I did. I broke it out and cleaned everything. First I washed all my deer hunting gear. I got so much deer hunting gear. I got a couple totes. I ended up switching my deer and my turkey tote because I needed the bigger one for my deer stuff. But so I went through all my turkey hunting stuff already.
Okay.
And that's another thing too, is kind of simplifying our gear for this trip. If I'm hunting around home or we're going up to Ashtabula, having the whole kit and caboodle with you,
Sure.
that's fine. But when we're down in them hills, I think limiting how much stuff we're actually taking in the woods is going to be important. Like, I'm probably not bringing a box call, and I'm probably not bringing 4 pot calls. I'll probably bring 1, and I'll probably try to bring more diaphragm calls, right? Because they don't weigh anything. And just making more room for food and water. And that was the other thing. Oh, dude, I got those Mio energy squirter things that you squirt in your water.
Sure.
That saved my life last year. Those were amazing, dude. That was like the greatest thing. I had like the water bladder, and I drink like the half of that thing probably before noon, and then I'd like take a nap, or something. I'd lay down next to a tree and just kind of chill out for an hour, and then get back up, and I'd pour 3 tablespoons of that Mio stuff in that water bladder, and then I'd just be sipping on caffeine the rest of the day, man. I was like, let's go. But
so it got you through those last couple of days.
Absolutely, man. Got me through the last, the afternoon from each day. You don't think so, man, but if like you go through, like, if you're actually turkey hunting for an entire day, that's a lot, man. Just imagine like an all-day sit. But you're like turkey hunting and moving and calling.
And big hills, too.
Big hills. Like
getting out of breath, climbing a ridge to get to the next one.
Not hearing anything, running into people.
Those hours turn slow.
Like, oh, yeah. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. But I'm excited, man. I can't wait. I don't know. Have you done any more surfing on?
I made one small purchase, which I thought was kind of more of a luxury purchase than anything else. And, maybe we could get more in depth on gear later, but I bought, it's called Vaucluse Ventilation. It's literally a plastic grid that hooks onto the back of your backpack, and it literally puts air between your back and your backpack. Because I remember in Southern Ohio, when we were just putting on crazy miles, my back was drenched.
Oh, I always forget you wear a backpack.
Yeah, and
you're one of those guys.
So what? But it was drenched on where that bladder was. Where it was pressing against my back.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm going to give that a shot. That's my fun gear buy this year. But I haven't fully gone through all my stuff.
That'd be interesting to see if that works. I mean, in theory, that should work great. You get some airflow through there. You won't be so sweaty.
I'm pretty hooked on the vests, the lightweight vests that have like 1 million pockets. The one I bought last year for me is.
I gave you that. Which one was that?
What it's called?
The Run and Gun 200 or something by Nightingale. Isn't it a Nightingale?
Yeah, I don't remember. I'll never hunt with something turkey hunting other than that. Maybe not. I mean, I might upgrade someday, but it'll be that style.
Yeah,
zip-up vest with 100 pockets. It's awesome.
I used to use like the vest that the big traditional vest with the giant butt pad, and like right. I got away from that, and I bought that run and gun turkey vest and used that for a few years. I like that a lot. I literally have gone through. I buy a new vest every year, it seems like, until this year. I bought the Tethered and Hunting Public, whatever it's called, M2 turkey vest or whatever. It's like module and everything. I love that thing's. I mean, say what you want. I know it's expensive, but that thing's freaking sick, man.
I'm kind of torn on if I try that chest pack with the vest. I don't think I'll need it, but that thing gets kind of hot on the chest, like John was saying, on your back. I noticed that in bow season. Wearing that,
you gotta have
sweating right here.
You gotta have room for water, right? Like if I was going to, there's 2 ways you could go. If you're going to hunt the local farm and it's only 100 acres, you could go real lightweight like that because you're only going to be out there till 10 o'clock and go home or whatever. Or you could bring, the whole kitchen sink if you wanted to. But on like a out-of-state public land hunt, I think that chest pack would be awesome, but I think you would still have to have some sort of like small backpack or something to carry water, carry food.
I think Kentucky, it's going to be mandatory to at least have 1.5 liters of water.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
The hydro.
I would always bring 2 liters, and I'd finish it every day.
Yeah, the camel pouch is going to be our best bet.
Yeah.
Couldn't go without it.
I love that little camel pouch or whatever you call it, the water bladder. I love that thing. That thing was so easy.
It's great.
You don't gotta like reach into your vest and pull anything out and put it back. There's no noise.
You know
You're not
what?
dinging a loud water bottle against something.
Does yours like fit into your vest, Josh?
Yeah, fits right in the back.
Does it have like a, I don't know, like a little tie down loophole like that comes out of your arm or something like that?
Let me grab it. Hang on.
That might be the $1 million invention right there, because on a lot of backpacks, the tube will go under a little ring of fabric on the arm, or on the shoulder,
Or on
can't see
your
that.
shoulder strap.
Yeah.
Shoulder strap.
Oh yeah.
If that was built into a vest, that'd be freaking
What did I
awesome.
do with it last year? I don't think there's anything built into the shoulder strap, but it has this molly, and I think I just put it
in there.
through one of the
Through the
molly
molly.
loops, and then it just held it right there for me the whole time. But
That's nice.
I love this little vest because, like I said, it's all modules, so I can get rid of whatever I want. I can take this backpack off. I can get rid of, these, these pouches or whatever if I wanted to. You can make it as light or heavy or whatever as you want. But and there's a couple different brands or turkey vests that kind of do the same thing as that one. But yeah, man, water. Food. Food was a big one, dude. I was
Granola bars.
bringing sandwiches in the woods with me, and granola bars, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I know what I liked to bring in was my wife. She likes to do 10Ks, half marathons. Those energy gel packs. They're real little. Again, weigh nothing, but give you a real boost. Sugars, carbohydrates, some caffeine. I know I'll be purchasing those again, and lightweight.
Electrolytes.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Lightweight. For those, those running marathon people who are crazy.
Well, they probably think we're crazy, man.
Yeah, we're gonna go
no
walk
doubt, no
6
doubt.
hills.
For a freaking turkey, you can just go to the store and get one, right? They're like $20.
You could run there on flat ground even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
got a-
man, go ahead, Bryce.
I
Sorry.
got a random question. It's kind of off topic though.
This whole podcast has been pretty random, so go ahead.
Okay, so I did some scouting down in Southern Ohio by our deer camp. I kind of started.
Are we
in
talking
muzzle-
about deer hunting or turkey
No.
hunting?
This is turkey hunting. In muzzleloader season, I'm always looking for turkey scratchings. Right. It's usually when I'm looking the most. I'm relaxed with the deer hunting situation. Whatever. We're still doing drives. Well, found this one hillside absolutely hammered with turkey scratchings. Poop everywhere. I mean, loaded. They logged out a big ridge up behind our place that we've hunted forever. And
Okay.
I kind of figured that would kind of kick them turkeys out of there. They were roosting right by us. I seen them roosting in gun season even. And long story short, last time I was down there last weekend, I heard them across the valley on that other hillside where I'd seen all them scratching before, and I heard them all clucking and feeding again. Do you think all them new logging trails from when they logged it out, do you think they'll still be up in that area? Because it's tore up. Nothing's grown back, obviously, yet. Do you think some of them trails are going to be strutting areas still, even though there's not as much really cover or nothing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, buddy, it's going to be better.
I kind of
Turkeys
figured
love
because
that
they're
stuff.
staying around, but I never
But
had
with
this
those
situation.
with the select cut and trees being removed, you're going to get more sunlight on that
Oh.
on that forest floor. So you're going to have plants growing that are brand new. It's going to be better cover. It's going to be food to eat. All them tops they probably left. Them hens are going to be in there trying to figure out if, hey, is this a place that I want to nest? I'd say they already like it.
Right, they've been there.
I think they're going to like it even more.
Did you say strutting areas? Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's going to be Yeah, turkeys
There's
like
going to be clear. Yeah.
turkeys love open spaces. They love open spaces that punctuate, old growth forest and diversity, and all that's going to do is just create more diversity and feathering and edge cover and all that stuff, man. Turkeys, yeah, they're going to be in there for sure. Especially if they're there right now, like
Sure.
we'll start seeing right now. If you're hearing birds, like John, when we were up at Ashtabula and we were shooting and we heard turkeys, 200 yards away, yelping and carrying on. There was a whole group of them. Well, when I went back in there to shed hunt, there was scratchings. So like, the path that we take to go down to like the path I walked in on, right?
Yep.
That kind of goes parallel to the swamp and drops down into that thick stuff. Dude, the scratchings between the swamp and the road and that path were like out of this world. So I know that's probably where those birds were when we heard them, but it looks like they're in there a lot.
They're using that beaver dam to cross.
Yeah.
I got pictures of them today crossing that beaver dam.
Do you really? No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I'll send you the pictures.
Oh, dude, I have your trail camera too. It's in my truck. I literally,
What?
I pulled it for you, and then I drove home with it. I remembered to give your jacket, but did your buddy give you your jacket back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't know where I was going with that. I was trying to make a
gobbling
point.
when you were shooting.
Yeah,
Then
I
what's
was trying to make some
scratches?
sort of point.
About strutting area. How they like to be in the
Starting
open.
areas. I don't know where I was going. Maybe I just wanted to tell John that there was a bunch of turkey scratchings back there behind your
And you have
house.
his camera.
Yeah, and I have his camera. Maybe I'll go up. I can just throw it out here on one of mine if you want to give me access to it if you want, John. On one of my properties if you want. So,
Funny.
All right,
but yeah, you guys, if you guys got anything else to talk about, otherwise we've been talking for like an hour and 15 minutes.
I'm good. I just want to get that question across there at the end. Honestly, I'm kind of it's gonna be a weird couple of years from our honey hole. Of hunting
Is it
down.
like a vast area that they cleared, or is it just?
It's really like our big point off of
Really?
big ridge system,
No,
and it
just
kind of
another
runs the big ridge system. It's like a couple bowls. You know what I mean? How the big bowls are down there.
Yeah.
Probably two big bowls with the tops on them are all gone. So
Be another thing to just figure out, man. But
yeah, I'm
before
excited.
we go, John, can you move your computer at all?
Sure.
Show us that deer, dude. I see that deer
hell
over
yeah.
your shoulder.
Oh. Yeah.
This
See
is
it.
last year's
Yeah, this is what he killed in November.
November, right?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Let's see if I can pull this off carrying this thing.
You got it.
Okay.
Sorry
got
for you
an
guys
attachable one. I'm gonna have
who
to
aren't
get that
watching on YouTube. This is probably terrible audio right now, but
I think he's a giant.
I just want to see how it turned out. Me and John went to the same. This is the buck I killed this year. Me and John went to the same taxidermist. What? What is going on? It says John's recording will continue on a new track. Oh. Oh.
Sorry,
device.
I accidentally knocked the cord out.
No, you're good. Lift it up. There you go. There you go. Oh, hell yeah,
That's
man.
nice
That looks
deer
good,
right
dude.
There.
Are you happy with how you turned out?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a sweet looking deer, man.
Did it end up being a 9 or 8? It's kind of blurry. I can't tell.
He's a 9.
Nine.
A 9, I thought. There you go.
Sorry, this is
Beautiful deer.
so awkward holding this this computer up.
No, that's good.
No, you're good, man. Cool. I just want to see it really quick, man. That's pretty sweet. And we went to what's it called? Bullseye Taxidermy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd want us giving him a shout out or not, but he did this deer last year too. I think he does a really good job, and he was quick too, man. I mean, how fast did he turn our deer around?
Oh, couple months.
3 months?
Yeah,
2
couple
months?
months.
Yeah, it was crazy fast.
That's awesome.
So, But all right, guys. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bryce, it's like pulling freaking teeth, but thanks for joining us.
Glad to be back.
Finally, yeah, happy you got some equipment that works. Go get a camera so we can see your face next time.
Right on.
And with that, we'll see you guys on the next one. We're gonna just be talking more turkey. Maybe next episode we'll talk a little bit more about like hunting tactics, calling, stuff like that if we want, or we can dive more into like different gear calls we got, stuff like that. Let us know. So thanks a lot. Take it easy.